Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Just wanted to drop in on the dime here and talk to you about my post this morning. I shared this morning a post about being intentional on LinkedIn, on having the opportunity to speak to an audience of 500 plus people and what you would say. And I got some questions that came back to me, and I want to make sure people understand what I mean by this and what I mean about being intentional on LinkedIn, right? So let's talk about first about that audience, right? I see tons of people complaining about the metrics, about the algorithm, about getting the same number of views. Look, that's all bunk. Who cares, right? If you had a chance, and let's be honest, if you had a chance to walk into a room and speak to 300 to 500 people, which is not a large number for views, and share something about yourself, would you take it? What about if it was remote for those that are, don't want to get up on a stage? Would you take it? And what would you share? So the first thing I want to do is caution people to not get so concerned about views, not track all of these numbers, right? To really think about, at the end of the day, what are you trying to accomplish? And I got to remind people about this a lot, that you could post about angry recruiters or recruiters not calling or changing the system or hiring a master sergeant over a master's degree, and you get a ton of clicks. And I guarantee you none of them are people that are thinking, let me hire this person, right? It's not happening. It's a lot of other people that are unhappy or a lot of other job seekers that haven't found their success. So the idea with being intentional about LinkedIn is understanding you get to shape that audience, number one, and then you get to say what you want to say. So what I mean by shaping the audience is when you post on LinkedIn, that goes out to your network, right? Your connections. And then if they click like or they comment on it, it goes out to their connections and their connections, right? But ultimately, it starts with that initial group of connections. So if you want to reach decision makers at Big Four consulting firms or Google or Apple or Microsoft, or if you want to meet decision makers, hiring managers in certain areas, if you want to reach recruiters in certain industries, you just have to connect with them, right? And don't make a big ask. Just connect, add a personal note. It's always better that way in my perspective. And then your engagement will start to build a relationship. So the first thing is you shape your audience. If you are in the military and all of your connections are other people in the military, then it's not reaching the right audience. You're not having the desired impact, right? And if all of your connections are your Facebook friends, probably not reaching the right audience as well. So you have to be intentional on expanding your network. And it's a little bit each day into the areas where you need it to be that are going to be able to be difference makers for you, right? These are people that could potentially see your content come through their feed over and over and start to feel like they know you. So that's the be intentional part, number one. Number two is to be intentional about the content you share. Now, the problem is I see a lot of transitioning service members share content related to the transition all the time. I'm going to this job fair. I had an interview. Wish me luck. I need a job. I applied for a job. The recruiter didn't get me. I went to this networking event. It's a great networking event. Everybody should go to this networking event. Like, it's all job related stuff, and none of it has any meaning or value. None of it's building relationships. None of it's giving an employer a reason to think about you. None of it is really doing anything to create opportunity. So what I mean about being intentional about sharing content, it's also about sharing content that's going to build relationships or make a decision maker, whether it be a recruiter, whether it be a hiring manager or an executive somewhere, think your name when a problem comes up that needs to be solved or when there's a job open that needs to be filled, right? And have you as a candidate. So what I want you to think about when you're sharing content is when you walk in front of that room and that room is filled with all of your connections, what do you say? Right? And it shouldn't be, hey, everyone should hire veterans. Veterans are flexible. We're diverse, whatever. There's like 34 diversity groups out there. We're not the only one, right? It should be things about yourself. So personal, professional stuff I like to share with people. if you CrossFit and you share that you CrossFit with a photo of some kind, even if it's just your CrossFit gear, a lot of executives that CrossFit are automatically going to feel a connection. Same thing with like surfing, cycling, whatever it is you do, you can share that personal, professional stuff that you would talk to people in the office, because that is the personal side of LinkedIn. And that is how people truly feel a connection with you. The other side is, from the professional side, you've got to start sharing content related to what you've done or what you want to do. So if you want to be a project manager, you probably should start sharing times when you've run projects, right? I mean, that would be ideal. And you've got to figure all that out for your PMP, application and everything else anyway. But why not start by sharing times when you've taken something from start to finish, or times when you've solved complex problems or leadership challenges that you faced and how you've dealt with it, right? So you could start sharing stuff like that. And then, really, I tell people, if you are coming up with star format answers for your interviews, I mean, you have stories to tell right there. It doesn't matter if it's already on social media once, right? If your public affairs or your organizations are writing articles about the unit and it's something you've done, share that article with what your role was. I mean, you really got to think about this stuff. If you start to document your personal, professional life, you mix a little bit of personal in there, but you really focus on sharing professional content, things you've accomplished, challenges you've overcome, ways that you've improved your organization, projects you've run, right? You start sharing that stuff. It's not going to get the same amount of clicks as a recruiter suck post. Trust me on that one. But it's going to make such a difference in how employers think about you. It's going to make employers think about you as a professional. It's going to make them start to think about you with the problems that you solve. It's going to make them think about you just because they have something in common. And so let's be intentional about how you post on LinkedIn and what you share, right? So make time every day to add a few connections, reach out and connect with people, add a personal note in the places where you think you need your network. So always do some analysis on that and consciously expand your network every day. Something I did throughout my first year. And then really start to make sure that you are getting the right mix of content. A little bit of personal, but a heavier fit on professional. And for those that are having trouble with that content creation piece on professional, I see Milford Beagle does a great job for that for 10th Mountain Division. He's the commanding general for 10th Mountain, and he just grabs a snapshot while he's out with the soldiers, he's out at an event, he's on a range, whatever. Some of those snapshots really it makes me think about his name when I think about, people being active on LinkedIn. So you can see how that starts to build that connection, right? And you could do the same. So just really think about it. Go back and look at your activity, look at your network. Do you have your network where you need it to be? And are you sharing content that makes people think about you? The last part I'm going to share is, look, let me be honest about this. You're not in the conversation if you don't join or start the conversation, right? So people aren't thinking about you based on a cool profile and a lot of connections. They think about you because you're commenting on their stuff. You're sharing content that resonates with them. And the content builds some kind of connection. And so understand this. Every time we see your name, your profile picture, your name, your headline, in a comment, on a post, anything that resonates with us, it's a little thread of a connection to us. And the more we see them, the more likely it is that a relationship will form, that will be willing to take those calls, that will be interested in considering you for positions or recommending you to somebody else. And there's a ton of people out there that I feel like I know from engagement that I've never actually met in person. Hopefully you rectify that in the near future. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being interested in what I have to say. And just remember, be intentional. Bye, everybody.